Hello, welcome back to Parsons Gaming. My name is Ben, and today we're going to continue on with Suzerain. So last time out, we set up our next investment project. We allocated some funds for our healthcare system, and we also negotiated a deal with the NFP to help back our constitutional reforms. So yeah, let's pick it up here in Wholesword with a briefing on the current curriculum in schools. This is probably going to go really poorly because we could definitely keep pissing off Ciara, but that's okay. Ciara had scheduled a short meeting at the Ministry of Education to discuss the current curriculum taught in schools. The Ministry building was located in the narrow government district right next to the Ministry of Health. It was tall, narrow, and wedge-shaped, like a slightly open book. Near the front gate, there are many statues of world-renowned scientists and thinkers. The largest, of course, was Artfin Einstaben, the greatest scientist of all time. Above the main entrance was the familiar inscription, Stratensis Ginekar Avgarenia int Ola Almergloptena int Ola Mexis. Jeez. Try to say that a couple times now, it never works. Education is the premise of progress in all societies and all families. Inside the building, I was greeted by Ciara's assistants. They led me to a meeting room where she was waiting inside. She stood and gripped my hand. Good afternoon, Mr. President. Yeah, let's start. Let's get this over with. I'll cut straight to the chase. You've elected not to reform the Sword education system. I've already voiced my many objections to that, but I respect your decision. There is, however, one sticking point. It involves evolution versus creationism. As it currently stands, schools across Southern can decide whether to include evolution, creationism, or both in their curriculum. Rural schools often decide in favor of creationism only, which puts students at a disadvantage when it comes to entering university. In fact, it is especially noticeable among young women. My suggestion is to make the teaching of evolution mandatory and preferably ban creationism altogether. Okay, I've got to see if the guide says anything about this. I know what I would prefer to do, or I mean, what I think we should do. Cool. All right. Guide doesn't say anything about this. I think the best thing to do is going to be basically just sticking with our conservative base and, going with weird nonsense instead of science. Evolution is the idea that ought to be banned. It's dangerous. No, creation is the real danger. It promotes the blind acceptance of the world as it is. No facts or verification needed. Children should be encouraged to think critically and ask questions. Creationism and other religious teachings hinder that. I mean, you're not wrong, but... What about the so-called evolution theory? Why should children blindly accept that? It's the exact opposite. Evolution is a theory that's created by using observational data over the span of many years. Whereas religion demands we believe in the word of one book, many scientists have worked on countless experiments. Might add that evolution is also most likely going to be proven in the future, as there is empirical evidence. Oh, man. Religion. So much fun. That doesn't change what I think. That sort of dogmatic thinking is exactly the problem. Without changing our perspective by learning about new things, how are we ever going to progress? You know what? This is going nowhere. There's clearly no point discussing this with you. Lucy Gallard knocked and entered.
Excuse me, some urgent business kept me away.
Welcome, Mr. Gallard.
Mr. President, Miss Walder.
Glad you came. I need to hear some opinions that actually make some sense. This lady's an idiot. Ciara frowned.
Oh, very well.
Continuing from my previous points, it is my conviction that we should require the mandatory teaching of evolution in Southern's public schools and cut creationism completely out. If we want children from rural areas to have the same opportunities as urban counterparts, this is the way. Opening students' minds and reducing the role of religion in schools also leads to more equality between young men and women.
Miss Walder, don't bring your pet colours into this. Mr. President, there are other considerations you may not have thought about. Although I myself believe in evolution, we must be careful not to alienate our rural conservative voter base.
Which is exactly what I said.
We owe a lot to their support. Forcing their school districts to teach evolution could irreparably damage our standing with them.
Every modern nation is reducing or removing creationism in their curriculum. Yet we are supposed to allow schools to promote fundamental and, yes, sexist ideas from 1,000 years back.
So, is that what we're doing now, copying what other nations are doing instead of paving our own way?
If it works, why not? Look at the analysis. It's clear that superpowers are doing something right. Should we reinvent the wheel, Mr. Galan? He speaks as if we didn't own to import any influences from other countries.
That's not what I said.
Their voices started to get louder and louder. I held up my hands for silence. Let's see. We've got to keep our stupid, conservative, base happy, so... Let's just go with that. Schools should be able to teach creationism exclusively. I can't believe you're ignoring all my arguments. What is motivation here to go back to 1739?
The motivation is to respect the beliefs of Soldan's hotline, not foist unwanted teachings on them.
Ciara looked me in the eye. It is your decision. Don't forget, future generations of Soldish youth are counting on you. We're just gonna stick to what's working, I guess. We'll stick to the current system. Evolution will not be mandatory, and schools that wish to teach creationism exclusively may do so. I can't believe this.
This will certainly help us retain our popularity among conservatives. Also, a less educated populace is more easily managed.
There is also that. We gotta keep the people poor and stupid. I can't believe you just said that. They turned and looked at each other. Lucy lifted his eyebrow, and Ciara held his gaze for a couple seconds. The meeting ended shortly after. Like so many other things in this playthrough, I feel kind of dirty doing that, but that's okay. Probably makes more sense to appeal to our totally stupid support base here. Alright, so in our country review, we've got Burja economy and island economy stabilizing, so that's pretty good. And 5 newspapers, almost all of them from the Swordland Post. Or, Whole Sword Post, sorry. Alright, nationalize the Big Four now. As the debate about privatization versus nationalization intensifies in the capital, the Whole Sword Post firmly believes that President Reign should come down on the side of nationalism for all of the so-called Big Four companies, including the currently fully private Heart of Swordland and Burgess Steel. Full nationalization would prevent price gouging, prevent CEOs like Marcel Koronti from consolidating power, but even the government taking minority ownership of both companies would go a long way towards ensuring they act according to state interests. And overblown rights case appealed. Today, the politically motivated and controversial court case by Ishval Ersin has made its way to the Supreme Court to be reviewed. The mayor of Deir, Felix Braun, has dismissed the presence of systemic racism in the region of Burja and accusations against law enforcement, citing that the Bludish being influenced by the Bludish Freedom Front, who wishes to radicalize the people for their dark aims. All eyes are now on Chief Justice Hawker and the Supreme Court to determine if the case is legal grounds or not. Many justices have already come forward to dispute the claim that the Constitution is not being upheld by the state of Swordland when it comes to the treatment of the Bludish people. And Ciara raises the Bludish question. Yesterday in the Grand National Assembly, NFP leader Ciara Kiemer proposed a law that would make Swordish the only language accepted in educational institutions, boldly standing up for Swordish culture and tradition. This law, the Unified Education Language Act, is squarely aimed at the Bludish community, whose integration in Swordish society has long posed a problem. Educating children solely in the official language of this country will help cement their Swordish identity and quash the threat of Bludish independence in Swordland, said Kiemer in his speech in the Assembly. Julio. And from Swordland Today, privatization, the future of Swordland. Don't let the pro-government elites fool you. Nationalization of Swordland's Big Four corporations would be a disaster for our country. Instead, we advocate for the privatization of state-owned enterprises, Net of Mining and Swordish State Corporation. Both companies have grown sluggish from lack of competition. Even private interests taking a minority stake could lead to greater innovation and a brighter future. Brilliant. Alright. We got a couple reports here. So from Dear, Government of Burja reports results. The Governor of Burja reports that the investment provided by the government has been put into use via various programs for new companies and technology fairs in Deir. The opportunities led to an increase in overall entrepreneurship in the region and revitalized the economy of Burja, further increasing trade with nearby countries and regions. Awesome. Let's see, Volgan Economic Report. As the economy stagnates, Volgan is reporting a slight dip in employment rates, as well as the shuttering of some small businesses. However, most larger corporations remain unaffected, and several of the city's big agricultural concerns are reporting growth. Looks like I missed one down here. Oh, yeah, over in Valen. Bludish Freedom Front neutralized in Valen. With the help of the Swordish Armed Forces, Victor Smolak's army has effectively managed to eradicate the threat of the Bludish Freedom Front in Valen. Leaders of the insurgency have been either killed or captured, and aerial footage shows that all known hideouts have been eliminated. Sora's troops will stay for several months to ensure peace has been restored before commencing withdrawal. Sweet. Alright. That looked like it was the last report, so let's head back to Whole Sword here. Let's just read the reports first. So, language bill prepared by Kisaro. Ciara Keeban is preparing a bill which aims to unify Swordfish education by making Swordfish the only language accepted in educational institutions, excluding specific foreign language studies. Cool. And Secret State Police investigation update. Secret police have completed preliminary investigations into members of the political opposition. No concrete proof of corruption or other wrongdoing has as yet been revealed. Sweet. Alright, and let's lobby the assembly. Alright, Chief Strategist Lucien Galat has prepared a well-planned lobbying effort in the Parliament, which would specifically sway on-the-fence MPs for the upcoming Constitution vote. Plan includes lavish parties, gifts, and even some political favors. Should we go ahead with the plan? Yes, I'm pretty sure the guide here says to spend as much money as we can, so I think that's what I'm going to do, but I'm going to double check. Yeah, spend as much money as possible in lobbying, just to be safe. So let's do that. And we've still got +1 personal wealth, so I think we're okay. Awesome, alright, and I guess let's go ahead and continue on to the next turn. Nice, alright, Chapter 3, Victim of Changes. Sweet, alright. Let's see here, let's go and start the newspapers here. The Radical, world ignores the Blutish plight. Barred from high-paying jobs, discouraged from attending university, spat on in the streets, swears outrage against Sordlin's relentless oppression of the Blues. For decades, Blutish swords have been treated as lesser beings, with the law still allowing rampant discrimination from businesses and educational institutions. We call on the international community to raise awareness of this tragedy so we can begin promoting equality among all Sordish citizens. And Geopolitica, Volgish man shot after burning Agnolian flag. The Helluland protests started against the governor who was appointed by the Agnolian government are continuing without slowing down. After the supportive statements by Chancellor Emmerich Hegel, the Volgish protesters assembled in front of the governor's office in Helluland and waved Volkslanian flags. One Volgish protester was photographed as he climbed the flagpole of the governor's office and brought down the Agnolian flag. He was shot by the Agnolian authorities on the island when he attempted to burn the flag with gasoline. Protesters claim he was shot in the neck and was killed immediately on the scene. The Agnolian government has not released any statement about the subject. The incident sparked further unrest, and protests turned into riots around the island. Many Volgish protesters now calling for Volksland to save them. Chancellor Hegel was quick to respond to the incident, saying Volksland stands together with their people in Helluland. No regime can murder citizens because they protested. If this conflict continues, Volksland holds the right to intervene to save her people. Cool. Alright, and we have a report from Suzerain on BFF recruitment. It is reported that in the villages around Suzerain, a group of BFF missionaries are seeking to recruit militants to fight for the BFF. Governor Braun reported that the gendarmerie forces in the area are now actively working towards eliminating the threats. Interesting. Alright. Well, let's head to Whole Sword here, and I guess talk to Marcel Koronti. I was in my office looking through the agenda for the upcoming meeting at the Ministry of Economy. The meeting was going to be about the ownership of the Big Four, the 4 largest companies in Swordland: Heart of Swordland, Burgess Steel, the Swordish State Corporation, and Netta Mining Group. Some of these companies were controlled in part or entirely by the state, the others mostly or completely privatized. I had the power to change that. The phone rang and I put the agenda down. I picked up the phone. Greetings, Mr. President. I'm sorry to disturb you before such an important meeting, but I thought now would be a good time to talk about our arrangement. I'm sure you'll agree that support I and my network have given your administration has been nothing but beneficial. Half the non-state media in the country has been sharing positive news about you and downplaying negative events. Our partnership has been successful so far. I'm glad you agree. Your public opinion could have nosedived if not for us. I heard him knock on wood. On another note, I want to thank you for choosing Underhall Construction to complete the L1 Railway. Mayor of Conrad Shah is a close friend and investor in Underhall, and your contracting of the firm has tripled its returns. You're welcome. Moving on. I know it's been a while, but I have to give credit where it's due, or overdo in this case. Your business bailout greatly benefited subsidiaries of HOS, reporting record losses. We managed to avoid closing those companies, and they satisfied the board of HOS with a high profit in return. Ensuring employment was our primary target. Of course. I can't help but mention your high tax hike, Mr. President. Increased taxes made a substantial dent in HOS's net profits. This has hurt the backbone of the Scottish economy. But I assure you, it's nothing we can't endure. Good. He paused for a few seconds. Lots of goodwill. I'll share a key piece of information. The Oligarch Group has contingency plans if you decide to do anything rash that will disrupt their empires. You can't blame them, can you? Imagine someone trying to take your authority and personal wealth away without your consent. They'll have to deal with whatever I decide. It's a tough world. Please don't take what I say. What I'm about to say is a threat. If you're not careful about what happens next, it might cost you dearly. Nobody wants that. If everybody plays their cards right, it'll all be fine. Now, let's talk about those cards. Since the start of your campaign, you've adamantly promoted a planned economy. Going by that, I'm worried you will attempt to nationalize Sworden's largest private corporations. Nationalization as a concept goes against everything my father built and stood for. If you do not want to go down this road, I must insist on you excluding HOS from any such plan. That is my most important request. You may recall that one of the terms of our agreement was that I may ask you for one favor. Well, this is it. Let me see. I'm pretty sure I want to help him out here, but let's double check. Yeah, so the guide says to nationalize Burgess Steel, but continue your relationship with Koronti. Cool, alright. Don't get your knickers in a twist. I was planning on leaving HOS alone anyway. That is excellent to hear. I knew we'd be on the same page. I'm raising my glass to you right now, Mr. President. There is actually one more thing I'd like to discuss. I will be blunt. Mr. Tusk is unfit to be the spokesperson for the Lothar Group. His archaic thinking has only preserved a status quo that benefits himself and precious few others. It's high time something changed. Alright, who do you have in mind to replace him? Who do you think? Me, of course. Here's what I propose, a win-win situation. If you could use your powers to make Burgess Steel, Tusk's main company, state-owned, he would lose considerable influence, which means I could take over. If I take over with your help, I'll be forever indebted to you and support you in all your goals, be the re-election or something more. How does that sound? That sounds profitable to me. Deal. Yeah, perfect. Well then, I've taken up enough of your time today. This has been a productive call. Thank you for your time, Mr. President. Yeah, thanks, Marcel. Talk to you later. After a couple minutes, I went back to reviewing the agenda. Cool beans. Alright. Let's see, we've got a journal entry here. Marcel wants to topple Walter. That's not really news. Alright, a couple of reports and some newspapers. So let's go to Suzerain here for a report. Legal crossings rise at Valen border. Border police have reported an increased number of arrests as Bludish and Vasic refugees attempt to enter the country from Valen without legal documents. However, due to our relaxed immigration policy, a large majority of skilled and educated workers have been accepted. However, it is unsure if they have had any history of crime and violence. Alright. From Suzerain, locals protest against military presence in Valen. Thousands of locals, many of them Bludish, stood enchanted in Suzerain's main square in opposition to Sordland's continued military presence in Valen, following the conclusion of joint operations against the Bludish Freedom Front. A reported 75% of Suzerain's citizens disagreed with the initial government decision to intervene in Valen. Cool. Alright. Oops. Let's go to the newspapers. From the Lockhaven Times. Protests continue against government intervention in Valen. Hundreds of students marched along Republic Avenue to protest the Sorge government's continued military presence in Valen, following the conclusion of joint operations against the Bludish Freedom Front. Anton Rain's decision to collaborate with Victor Smolik to eliminate the insurgents attracted harsh criticism from the beginning. Now, with Sorge troops remaining in the country to keep the peace, the protesters say withdrawal is long overdue. And Geopolitico. Valen Operation Aftermath continues. Months after Presidents Anton Rain and Victor Smolak declared a successful end to the joint operations against the Bludish Freedom Front in Valen, the region still remains fraught. Multiple street skirmishes between Bludids and Vasics have been broken up by peacekeeping troops. Efforts to rebuild the homes and businesses that were destroyed in the conflict have stalled out. One upside is that no further retaliation from the Freedom Front has been seen. Nice. Okay. Let's head to Whole Sword and let's read another report here. General Staff releases positive statement. Earlier this week, the General Staff held a meeting in which Joseph Lancia had voiced his pleasure to work under the administration. According to rumors, Lancia said, "The current president is a man of tradition. He is strong and he is decisive. I had worked with President Sol before. I know President Sol. He is my friend, and I know that he is proud of what President Anton has achieved." Perfect. Alright, let's go meet up with Lucien here real quick. Lucien scheduled some time with me to discuss the potential political repercussions of the upcoming economy meeting. He arrived on time as usual and took a seat right across from me.
Good morning, Mr. President.
Lucien had dark circles below his eyes. The plethora of political developments must have been weighing even on a workaholic like him. You look a bit tired. You getting enough sleep?
I am trying to, sir.
Well, don't push yourself too much.
I will try not to. I must say, you don't look much better.
I looked at myself in a small hand mirror. Similar circles beneath my eyes as well.
I booked some of your time to pre-plan for today's meeting at the Ministry of Economy. We need to be cautious. Any grand plans about the economy also heavily influence our political standing. We will be changing our relationship with the old guard, the oligarchs, and the opposition. As you know, this meeting will give you the opportunity to alter the ownership of the Big Four, the largest corporations in all of Sultan. We can start the process of nationalization or privatization, or we can just keep the status quo. Again, I remind you that any change will tip an already fragile balance. I personally think we should stay out of this, keep things as they are. There's no need to make new political enemies at this stage, Nutshell. But ultimately, the decision is yours. What are you leaning towards? How should we move forward?
Well, we're going to nationalize at least one of them, so... we'll nationalize these companies.
I have to ask, why? What is your intention?
I cannot allow a major part of the country to run without my input as president. The oligarchs must submit to me.
It is true that the more control we have, the better. Your administration still bears responsibility if we let the oligarchs determine the course of the country. One thing to remember is that since you've been transparent about promoting a planned economy, nationalization will not cost us much support.
Lucien took a note in his notebook.
I had received a report from the Ministry of Economy that may impact your decision. Unfortunately, we have missed our government budget targets for the current quarter. The plan to change the ownership of important assets could help us generate much-needed resources to further improve economic development before the next election. It's just something to consider, as is our relationship with the oligarchs. We might be aiming for nationalization, but we need to remember that they only care about their own profits. Thankfully, we are on good terms with them now, which helps us with the economic recovery. If our nationalization plan hurts their assets too much, it can put us at odds with the men who control much of the economy. Walter Tusk seems to be organizing several opposing centrist and liberal assembly members to back us in the upcoming vote. If we maintain our standing with him, our reforms process will benefit.
It's all a show. He and the others won't lift a finger without clear benefit. Besides, we don't need them.
Just be careful with him. Remember, any path we take here could very well determine what battles we fight in the future. Some of my connections indicate that there seems to be a contest for leadership in their Lolaber group. It looks like Master Koronti is making moves to become the key figure. Koronti probably wants his father's seat as head of the group, and Tusk doesn't want to let go of it. It's a significant power struggle, considering these are the heads of Soldan's two largest private corporations. Because we're going down the path of nationalization, we will have the power to tip the balance towards either side. Since you've already made the decision to nationalize, you need to be decisive in your follow-up actions. Did Marcel or Tusk contact you?
No, they haven't. Lucien gave me a long, measured look.
Strange. I was sure one of them would contact you. At any rate, this internal conflict among the oligarchs puts us in an interesting position. Our relationship with Walter Tusk has been very strong so far, and we have the backing of the oligarchs to take for that.
Lucien looked at his watch.
Very well then, it's almost time. I will inform Mr. Hall of your decision. You will make the necessary preparations to formulate a plan. I must get back to work now. See you at the next meeting. Thank you for your time, sir.
Lucien got up from his chair and left the office. Okay, I've got a couple more newspapers here. And one report from Arvery, so let's hit that first. Falkland Navy active in Marking Sea. Helioland Island has been a disputed territory for many years between Agnolia and Falkland, because of the fact that Sutherland has also recognized the island to belong to Agnolia. Falksonian Navy probably hopes to scare us. It has been leading patrolling missions close to our territorial waters. Falkland's increased navy activities in the Markian Sea are heightening standoff between Agnolia and Falkland, sharpening the rivalry for each other. Cool. Alright. And hitting up the news from the Whole Sword Post. Sorsh Kantana joint drills at Conrad Naval Base. United Kantana, have been granted access to Conrad Naval Base, has been running joint military drills with Sworders ships. The exercise is indicative of the deepening trust between our country and United Kantana following the deal, during which United Kantana also promised Swordland financial, logistical, and equipment support. And we've got two from Geopolitico. First off, Kantanan ships from Conriat seen together with the Falklandian Navy. The enormous show of force against Eastern Maricopa nations, in particular Agnolia, is continuing without any signs of slowing down. Reports from the Markian Sea indicate that the patrolling Falklandian fleet was joined by several destroyers and cruisers of United Kantana, which were previously docked in the joint Kantanan-Sordish Naval Base in Conriat. President Walker condemned both United Kantana and Swordland in a speech yesterday at Ventry City, saying what the CSP nations trying to do in Eastern Maricopan waters is not only a threat to countries like Agnolia and Lesbia, but a threat to the whole of Maricopa. I condemn President Rain for bringing Kantanan ships into the Markian Sea. He will be responsible if anything happens in the seas. Prime Minister Alvarez also condemned the event and demanded that the Kantanan ships should immediately return to the base in Conriat. And tensions keep rising in the Markian Sea. According to reports from the Agnolian government, the Falklandian fleet, which has been patrolling the Markian Sea, was directly responsible for the disappearance of 2 fishing vessels and an oil tanker that belonged to Agnolia. Prime Minister Van Horden called the Alliance of Nations to investigate the incident, while also increasing their own naval presence in the region. Reports indicate that a massive Agnolian fleet, which is made out of destroyers, cruisers, and the flagship of the Agnolian Navy, are also patrolling the Markian Sea close to Helluland. Prime Minister Van Horden condemned Chancellor Hagel in his speech yesterday, saying the Chancellor is trying to imprison us in our homes with a show of strength, but he should know Agnolia does not stand alone. We react swiftly and decisively if we're threatened. Fantastic. Alright. So, let's go ahead and end here with the ownership changes of major corporations. Lucy and I arrived at the Ministry of Economy. Assistants took our coats and showed us into the meeting room where Simon, Edith, Gus, and Mikhail were waiting. As soon as I entered, the chatter stopped and they stood up. After a few pleasantries, everyone but Simon took their seats. He opened his briefcase, produced a folder, and proceeded to go over some of the documents. Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the Ministry of Economy. Without further ado, we're here today to discuss our economic move towards nationalization. Both Mikhail and Edith had their arms crossed and frowns on their faces. They were listening intently. Mr. President, before you arrived, certain individuals in this room were voicing their opinion against the nationalization plan, but as I understand it, your decision has already been made. Which certain individuals were those? Me and Edith, Mr. President. I'm very much against the nationalization plan. This is for the good of our country. I don't think so. Nationalization could provide improvement in terms of our economic development in the next year or two. In the long term, you're losing people's trust. Without trust, there can be little trade, especially if the government excessively nationalizes entire industries. Besides, it will cost us a proportionate amount of government budget to nationalize. And you personally won't be able to profit. Isn't that right, Miss Agnock? No, that is not my point.
Miss Agnock, don't forget whom you're speaking. Let's not get ahead of ourselves, shall we? Mr. Hall, please continue.
Thank you, Mr. Glad. Let's move on to how we can go about implementing a nationalization plan. Mr. President? He handed me and everyone else in the room 2 neat stacks of documents. Please turn to page 14. I turned to page 14. The title was Heart of Swordland. As you can see in the document, the first corporation up for discussion is Heart of Swordland. Led by fledgling CEO Marcel Crani, HOS has recently observed a boost in their revenue, and they control many media organizations across Swordland. It is possible to see their imprint everywhere, from newspaper stands to convenience stores. In fact, they own more than half the media products in the country. We all know how much of an effect media has on policies, or on politics. That is the reason I think if we are to nationalize any corporation, HOS should be our target. I must add that I myself am against fully nationalizing any of these companies in principle. However, we could partially move the ownership of HOS to the state, gaining access to their income to help end the recession and provide for our citizens.
I am inclined to agree with you from a political perspective. However, if we are going to nationalize HOS, I think we should go all the way and fully move its ownership to the states.
Screw it. I already know what to do. Let's move on to our next option. Very well. Please turn to page 37. I turned to page 37. The title was Burgess Seal. Burgess Seal. It is the largest private corporation in the Big Four, and therefore the largest in Sordland. It has been at the helm of steel manufacturing for many years. It is led by current CEO and Lilliburg spokesman Walter Tusk. I believe all of us in the room are familiar with him in one way or another. Well, what can I say? They have been widely successful since their founding. They have achieved renown not only in Sordland, but worldwide. I believe we should attempt to break something that is already working. I am against the nationalization of Burgess Steel in any capacity.
Not to mention any amount of nationalization would be disastrous for both Burgess Steel and Sordland. Much of our steel traders rely on their manufacturing capabilities. Any sudden change there would be like throwing a screwdriver in a working engine.
No matter what, we should refrain from nationalizing them. It could result in an economic crisis.
I don't have a strong opinion of so strong of an opinion. I will say that nationalizing both Burgess Steel and HOS would be quite unwise.
Alright, well, since I'm going to nationalize them anyway, let's ask about it. What would the effects be if we fully nationalize Burgess Steel?
Where do I start? They're quite literally the backbone of Sordland's private economy. If you do this, you'll anger many powerful people. Trust me, you don't want that.
Is that a threat, Mikhail?
No, Mr. President, it's a fact.
Alright, well, screw you, dude. I'm ready to make a decision. Sounds good. Let's go over the documents once again, then. I read all of Simon's documents once more, then flipped to the last page. Okay, so... yeah, fully nationalize Burgess Steel and just leave Heart of Sordland alone. Yep. And we'll leave Heart of Sordland alone. Done. Yes. I signed the document altering the ownership of the Big Four with a flourish. Simon leaned back in his chair. So, this is the path we're taking.
This is absolutely ridiculous. Simon, please tell me you're not fine with this. Please tell me that Mr. President did not just sign this order.
He just did, Mr. Robin.
And there is nothing you can do about it.
Mikhail turned to me. His eyes were wide open with rage. He was clenching his fists so hard that his hands turned red from his exertion.
What? Well, what have you done?
Mikhail, don't, please.
You're making a great mistake, Mr. President. You have chosen Heart of Sordland, a media conglomerate, over Burgess Steel, a company that spent decades fighting steel manufacturing in this country. I'm sorry. No matter what I do, I can't understand your reasoning.
Simple. Really? It was the better choice.
I see. It was Koronti, wasn't it? So he bought you. Mr. Robin, I want you to think very carefully about what you are going to say next. I'm not going to say anything. We're done here. Come, Edith. We must report the outcome of this meeting.
Yeah, we gotta report back to your masters. I'm not going anywhere. Mikhail turned to Edith with a sour face. His eyes were shooting daggers.
Suit yourself, Mr. President. Mr. Tusk will hear about this. You can rest assured.
That's what I'm hoping for. He packed up his bag and started making his way to the entrance. Lucien got up from his seat and intercepted him on his way out. He put his hand on Mikhail's shoulder and spoke with a calm and soft voice.
I'll be watching you.
Mikhail didn't respond. He simply left. Edith leaned forward to get closer to my ear. Mr. President, I've had my fair share of experience. I understand when the cards are stacked against me. I want to show you you'll find an ally in me. It had better be that way, Edith, for your own good. I understand. I must leave now as well. That will be it for today, then. I know everyone has busy schedules. Thank you all for coming. Thank you, Simon. My pleasure. I put the documents in my suitcase and left the room with Lucien. Alright, well, I was not expecting a decrease in my budget there, but that is okay. And that feels like as good a spot as any to go and call it good for today. So, thank you all very much for watching, and as always, I hope to see you next time.